Imagine it is early morning in ancient Rome. The sun is only just beginning to rise, spilling pale light across marble columns and weathered stones. The air is cool, still carrying the freshness of night, yet already filled with the faint hum of footsteps, merchants arranging stalls, and the quiet murmur of voices gathering in the distance. You are standing at the edge of the Roman Forum, the very heart of the empire, a place where politics, trade, and daily life once flowed together like water through a great fountain beneath your feet. The stones are worn smooth by centuries of movement. Sandals, wagon wheels, the tread of armies returning from campaigns, all have passed this way. Each step you take now echoes faintly, a soft sound that joins countless others in the memory of this place. To your left, tall columns stretch into the sky, their tops glowing gold in the morning light. To your right, broad basilicas open like vast halls, once alive with traders, bankers, and scribes. Ahead, arches and monuments stand proudly, carved with stories of triumph and power, their details softened by time but not forgotten. The Forum is not only stone and marble, it is a living memory. Here, orators once lifted their voices, their words stirring crowds. Here, senators walked in long robes, discussing matters that shaped nations. Here, common citizens strolled, bartered, and laughed. Children darted between pillars, sellers called out the price of grain, and travelers arriving from distant lands marveled at the grand heart of Rome. To walk here was to stand at the center of a world that seemed unshakable. Tonight, together, we will wander these paths. We will move slowly, letting each detail unfold, as if you too were walking through the Forum at dawn, hearing the faint echo of sandals and feeling the hush of history around you. This will not be a tale of battles or conquests, but a quiet journey through the daily pulse of a place that once held the life of an empire. So settle in. Let the sounds of the modern world fade. Imagine the cool stone beneath your feet, the rising sun above ancient columns, the steady rhythm of footsteps on worn paths. And if you enjoy walking with history in this way, remember to like and subscribe so these calm journeys can find you again. Now, let us begin our walk through the Roman Forum. The first light of dawn rests gently on the ancient stones, turning their pale surfaces into shades of gold and soft gray. As you step forward, you feel the coolness of the morning air against your skin, crisp and clean, touched with the faint smell of smoke from distant hearths and the earthy scent of stone that has held centuries of footsteps. The Forum stretches out before you like a vast stage, silent yet filled with whispers of 1,000 days gone by. At this hour, the place is almost empty. The great city of Rome is stirring, but here in its heart, the morning has just begun. The wide paving stones under your feet are cool to the touch, still damp from night's dew. Each stone is worn and uneven, polished smooth in places by sandals, wheels, and hooves that once passed in endless streams. Looking down, you realize that every mark beneath you is the imprint of lives long past. Merchants hurrying to set their stalls, senators striding toward meetings, children darting between crowds. Each step you take seems to echo faintly, as though the Forum remembers. Ahead, the columns rise tall and proud, some standing whole, others broken, their marble faces glowing faintly in the early sun. They look like sentinels, guardians of memory, silent and unshaken despite the centuries. Shadows cling to their bases, stretching across the stone ground, as if reluctant to leave with the coming light. Birds perch high above, their wings brushing against the air, their cries sharp and clear, mingling with the soft sounds of the city waking. On one side, the outlines of great basilicas emerge from shadow. These vast halls once sheltered voices of trade, argument, and law, but now in the stillness of dawn they seem like hushed giants, their empty arches framing the quiet sky. The stones of their walls carry warmth from the first rays of sunlight, and as you look upon them, you can almost imagine the low murmur of clerks setting down their wax tablets, the rustle of robes as men shuffled in, ready for a day of business. The streets leading into the forum are beginning to stir. A cart creaks on wooden wheels, pulled slowly by a weary mule, its driver humming under his breath. The sound of sandals slapping against stone grows closer, the first merchants making their way to the stalls where they will sell bread, fruit, or pottery. Their voices are low, carrying in the still morning air, not yet the busy hum of midday, but a softer rhythm that speaks of beginnings. You pause at the entrance, taking in the scale of it all. The forum is not just one space, but many woven together. A wide open square lined with columns and arches, flanked by temples, basilicas, and monuments. Each corner tells its own story. To your left, the remains of a triumphal arch glisten faintly, carved with scenes of battles that once brought glory to Rome. To your right, the foundations of an older shrine sit quietly, its stones darker, rougher, as though holding memories even older than the empire itself. Ahead, the open square spreads wide, its paving stones leading you deeper into the heart of the city. The light is changing now. As the sun climbs higher, the shadows retreat, and the forum reveals more of itself. Details emerge, the worn edges of steps, the grooves in the stone from countless carts, the faded carvings etched into marble. These are not museum pieces, polished and protected. They are living fragments, scarred by time, but still standing, still speaking. The forum feels less like a ruin and more like a witness. A place that has seen everything, triumph and despair, power and decline, yet continues to endure in silence, standing there. You cannot help but feel the presence of those who walked before you. Their voices seem to linger in the air, faint echoes carried by the morning breeze. Perhaps it is imagination, or perhaps it is the weight of history pressing gently against your senses. Either way, the forum does not feel empty. It feels alive, filled with the memory of countless mornings just like this one, when Rome awoke and its people gathered here. You take a step forward, the sound of your footfall joining the chorus of imagined echoes. This is the first glimpse of the Roman Forum at dawn, not just stones and ruins, but a place where the past and present meet. A place where silence carries the weight of centuries, and where every column, every paving stone, every shadow seems to whisper, "You are walking where Rome once lived." When you first step into the forum and let your eyes wander across its vastness, it is easy to be drawn upward, to the columns that pierce the sky, to the arches that frame the horizon, to the distant outlines of temples and basilicas. But to truly understand this place, to feel its pulse and its history, you must look downward, toward the stones beneath your feet. For these stones were more than the ground you walk upon. They were Rome's arteries, its living veins, the paths upon which the city's life flowed for centuries. To walk here is not only to see ruins, but to place your own step upon the same stones where millions once passed. The paving of the forum is uneven, patched together over centuries, yet it speaks with a voice stronger than marble statues. Some of the stones are enormous slabs, dark and weathered, their surfaces grooved with deep ruts carved by the wheels of countless carts. Others are smaller, smoother, repaired and replaced as time demanded. The colors shift from gray to brown, from pale white limestone to darker basalt, each piece a fragment of a larger story. At first glance, they may seem ordinary, mere rock laid together. But pause long enough, and you begin to see them differently. These stones are not still. They hum quietly with memory. Imagine the centuries of footsteps pressed into them. Sandaled feet of Roman citizens hurrying to markets at dawn. Heavy boots of legionaries returning from long campaigns, their armor clinking softly, their shadows falling long across the square. The measured steps of senators in flowing robes, voices low as they prepared for debates that would shape the empire. Children's quick footsteps, darting playfully among the crowd. Laughter ringing out before being swallowed by the hum of the forum. Foreign traders with strange accents, their heavy shoes carrying the dust of distant lands. All of them pressed into these same stones, their weight leaving marks not only in grooves, but in the very atmosphere of the place. The Roman genius for roads is well known. Yet standing here, you feel it more intimately. These were not just pathways to carry soldiers across empires. They were the threads of daily life. They bound together the people of Rome as surely as they bound together the provinces of the empire. Every exchange of goods, every conversation, every decision, large or small, began with the act of walking upon these stones. In their silence now, they hold the echoes of voices that once filled the air. Walk slowly, and you notice how uneven the surface is. Your foot shifts slightly, as though reminding you that these are not modern pavements, smooth and perfect. They are scarred with time. Some stones sink slightly lower than others, worn down by centuries of pressure. Small cracks run across their surfaces, sprouting tiny plants that cling stubbornly to life. In places, the lines of the paving seem crooked, patched where repairs were made long ago. Yet this very imperfection tells a story. It shows the resilience of a place that was never static, but always alive, always adapting. The edges of the forum, narrow paths diverge, leading toward arches, steps, and side streets. These smaller passages once carried people into and out of the square like tributaries feeding a river. Imagine the morning rush as hundreds poured into the forum, each with their own purpose. A woman carrying baskets of bread, a scribe hurrying with scrolls tucked under his arm, a farmer leading a mule laden with produce. Their feet beat steadily against the stones, a rhythm that grew louder and louder until the forum itself seemed to pulse with energy. Even the carts left their stories here. The deep grooves in the paving stones are more than accidents of wear. They are the scars of wheels that rolled endlessly, carrying grain, wine, pottery, and goods from every corner of the empire. Each groove is a reminder of Rome's vast reach, of its dependence on trade and movement. Stand still long enough, and you can almost hear the creak of wood, the snort of animals, the sharp calls of drivers urging their beasts forward. The air would have been filled with dust, the stones trembling faintly under the constant passage. What seems silent now was once alive with motion. The stones beneath your feet also carried more solemn steps. Processions moved across them, triumphal parades celebrating victories, solemn escorts bearing the dead, official delegations making their way to the Senate. In those moments, the stones were stages upon which history played out. Imagine a line of soldiers in shining armor, marching in perfect rhythm, the ground vibrating with their steps. Behind them, generals rode in chariots, their wheels pressing deeply into the grooves. Citizens crowded along the edges, their feet pressing into the stones as they leaned forward to watch, to cheer, to shout. These same stones absorbed the weight of triumph and sorrow, of celebration and loss. But for all the grandeur, most footsteps were ordinary. A boy running to fetch water, a girl carrying a clay jug, a merchant setting out baskets of olives, a craftsman on his way to work. These daily rhythms are what gave the stones their true meaning. They were not only paths of power, but of life itself. Every small act of movement, repeated thousands of times, wore the surface smooth, shaping the forum into the living heart of the city. Pause again and look closely at one stone. See how its surface dips slightly in the center, like a shallow bowl. That curve is not the work of design, but of centuries of feet pressing down. It is the mark of countless lives lived, of time itself etched into the ground. Place your foot there, and you are standing exactly where someone else once stood, perhaps 2,000 years ago. Perhaps a baker waiting for the market to open, or a senator pausing before making a speech, or a child chasing after a parent. The connection is quiet but profound. The stones bridge centuries, turning the act of walking into an act of remembrance. As the morning grows brighter, the forum begins to stir more fully. Merchants set up their stalls, spreading cloths over wooden tables, laying out baskets of goods. The scrape of wood against stone fills the air. The first customers arrive, their footsteps brisk, their voices lively. A group of men gather near a rostrum, their sandals tapping softly as they lean close to discuss. The air begins to fill with a low hum, the sound of hundreds of lives moving, speaking, working. The stones beneath it all carry this weight silently, absorbing each sound, each step, holding it within themselves. Even the animals left their mark. Dogs padded across the forum, their claws scratching faintly on the surface. Mules and horses clopped steadily, their hooves ringing against stone, leaving tiny chips and cracks that remain even now. Birds hopped along the ground, searching for scraps. Life in all its forms passed here, and the stones held them all, indifferent yet enduring to eye in the quiet of the present. When you stand here with only the sound of the breeze and the distant hum of modern Rome, it is easy to think of the forum as still, but the stones beneath your feet remind you otherwise. They are restless with memory, alive with the countless lives that pressed against them. To walk here is to walk not only through space, but through time, to let your own footsteps join a chorus that has been singing for 2 millennia. As you continue across the forum, each step becomes a meditation. The rhythm of your walking echoes faintly, reminding you that history is not only grand statues and towering columns, but also the ground itself, the humble stones that bore the weight of daily life. They are the truest witnesses, the most enduring storytellers. And in their silence, they whisper, "Look closely, walk slowly, listen carefully, for we remember everything." When you lift your eyes from the worn paving stones of the forum and let your gaze travel upward, the temples come into view, towering structures that dominate the skyline of the square, their columns glowing in the shifting light of day. To the people of ancient Rome, these buildings were not simply places set aside for ceremony. They were landmarks of identity, statements of grandeur, and markers of power. Even now, in ruins, their outlines capture attention immediately, for their scale and form speak of a time when architecture was meant not only to serve, but to impress, to overwhelm, to remind all who walked here that they stood in the center of a mighty world. The temples rise on platforms, their steps broad and worn, their facades lined with rows of marble columns. Some are fluted, carved with vertical lines that catch the morning sun, while others are smooth, their surfaces gleaming. The capitals, the crowns of the columns, carry intricate details, some simple and plain, others lavish with acanthus leaves curling outward in delicate patterns. Above them, triangular pediments once displayed carvings of scenes and symbols, figures in high relief standing out against the stone. Time has softened their edges, but if you pause and look closely, you can still see faint outlines. Horses, shields, flowing robes. Strong faces frozen in silent watch, approaching the first temple. The steps stretch before you like a stage. They are wide, shallow, and polished by centuries of use. Each step feels heavy with memory, worn in the middle where feet passed most often, the edges still sharp where fewer people trod. Imagine the movement here, officials in long robes climbing slowly, their sandals brushing the stone. Groups of citizens gathered at the base, talking, waiting, leaning against the walls. Children sitting on the steps, their laughter echoing faintly against the columns. Though the temple was meant as a place of reverence, it also became a gathering point, a backdrop for the endless drama of daily life. From the steps, the height of the structure becomes even more impressive. The columns loom above, rising like stone trees, their tops lost against the sky. Place your hand against one and you feel the coolness of marble, the faint ridges of fluting, the tiny chips and scratches left by centuries of touch. Each column tells its own story, of masons who carved it, of workers who hauled it into place, of countless people who brushed past it day after day. These are not abstract relics. They are the physical remains of labor, sweat, and human determination. Beyond the columns lies the inner chamber, dark and still, its air cooler than the outside square. Though time has emptied it of much of its decoration, the space retains a solemn weight. The walls, once painted in bright colors or lined with precious marble, now stand bare and silent, but their height and proportion still inspire awe. The chamber feels both intimate and immense, a place where whispers seem loud and footsteps echo against stone. Even without its former treasures, the emptiness itself holds power. A reminder that grandeur can exist not only in what is present, but also in what lingers after centuries of absence. Step outside again, and let your gaze sweep across the forum. More temples line the edges, each with its own style, its own presence. Some are larger, designed to dominate, their facades stretching wide across the square. Others are smaller, tucked into corners, their scale more modest but no less graceful. Together, they form a ring around the forum, their columns rising like a forest of stone, framing the open space within. From any point in the square, the temples are visible, their outlines drawing the eye upward, their forms reminding you of the order and stability that Rome sought to project. But the temples were not silent even in their grandeur. They were part of the daily life of the forum. Merchants set their stalls nearby, knowing that people gathered here would bring business. Orators used the broad steps as platforms, raising their voices to speak to crowds below. Citizens paused in their shadows to rest, to talk, to watch the movement of others. The temples may have stood as monuments, but their presence shaped the rhythm of ordinary days. They were landmarks not only of stone but of memory, places where meetings were arranged, where news was shared, where lives intersected. The scale of construction itself is worth pausing to imagine. Each block of marble, each carved column, had to be transported, lifted, and set into place with astonishing precision. Workers labored for months, even years, carving details, polishing surfaces, raising scaffolding. Tools rang against stone, voices called out instructions, ropes creaked as heavy blocks were lifted into the air. To stand before the completed temple was to see not only a building, but the culmination of endless human effort. It was a monument to endurance as much as to grandeur, and yet, time has done its work. Many of the temples now stand only as fragments, a row of columns here, a crumbling wall there, the outline of foundations traced into the ground. At first glance, it may seem a loss, but in truth, this very ruin carries its own kind of power. To see the fragments is to see the passage of centuries, the way stone weathers but does not vanish, the way memory clings even when details fade. The silence of these ruins is not emptiness but a deeper kind of presence, a whisper that endures even when voices are gone. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the forum at its height. The temples gleam with fresh paint and polished marble. Their pediments shine with color. Their statues look alive in the morning sun. Crowds gather on the steps. Voices fill the air. The square hums with energy. Then open your eyes again and see the ruins as they are now. Quiet, broken, softened by time. And in that contrast, feel the weight of history. The stones may have lost their brightness, but they have not lost their meaning. They remain, steady and patient, reminders of all that came before that night. When the forum grew quiet, the temples must have looked different still. Torches flickered against their columns, casting tall shadows across the paving stones. The square would have been hushed, save for the occasional sound of footsteps or voices carried on the breeze. The temples stood in that darkness like guardians, their outlines sharp against the night sky. Even now, if you imagine yourself here after sunset, the ruins still carry that feeling. Tall silhouettes standing silent, their strength undimmed by centuries. The grandeur of the temples lies not only in their height or their beauty, but in their endurance. They have seen the rise and fall of Rome, the passing of empires, the footsteps of millions. They have stood through triumphs and tragedies, through times of plenty and times of despair. And still they remain, their columns reaching toward the sky, their stones holding memories deeper than words. That to walk among them is to walk through layers of time. Each step carries you across centuries. Each glance reveals fragments of stories long past. The temples do not shout their history. They whisper it, slowly, patiently, to those willing to pause and listen. In their silence, they invite reflection, reminding us that grandeur is not always in noise or spectacle, but in presence, in endurance, in the quiet dignity of stone that stands long after voices have faded. When you step away from the open paving stones of the Forum and let your gaze drift toward the long rectangular buildings that line its edges, you begin to see another world unfold. These are the Basilicae, vast halls with wide roofs supported by rows of tall columns, their interiors shaded, cool, and alive with activity. To the casual visitor, they may seem like simple meeting places, but in truth, the Basilicae were the lungs of the Forum, spaces where the breath of Rome itself rose and fell with every deal struck, every case argued, every conversation whispered beneath the echoing arches. Unlike the temples, which reached upward in silent grandeur, the Basilicae stretched outward, their scale horizontal rather than vertical. They were open on the sides, often framed with long colonnades that welcomed streams of people in and out. Their roofs stretched wide, creating shelter from the hot Roman sun or from sudden rain showers that swept across the city. Inside, the halls were vast and flexible. The sound of footsteps echoed across the stone floors. Voices rose and blended into a low hum. The smell of oil lamps and damp stone lingered in the air. These were spaces of movement, of noise, of daily life unfolding with steady rhythm. Imagine stepping inside one on a busy morning. The first thing that strikes you is the change in sound. Outside, the Forum is open, its noises carried away by the breeze. But within the basilica, sound gathers and multiplies, bouncing from column to column, rising toward the high roof, then spilling back downward in a mixture of words, laughter, and calls. The murmur is constant, broken only by sudden shouts, a merchant advertising his goods, a clerk calling for order, or the rhythmic ring of a hammer striking a coin. The echo makes even small conversations feel larger, as though every voice is amplified by the stone. The floors are made of smooth stone slabs, polished by countless feet. In some places, colored tiles form patterns, geometric shapes, or simple borders, a touch of beauty among the practical surfaces. The columns, tall and evenly spaced, stretch in rows that seem endless, their tops supporting arches or beams of wood. Between them, the space is divided into smaller sections, stalls for merchants, benches for scribes, open areas where crowds can gather. Light filters in from high windows or from the open colonnades at the edges, falling in long shafts that illuminate dust drifting in the air. This is where Rome did much of its talking and dealing. Traders set up stalls, displaying goods brought from distant provinces, fabrics dyed in rich colors, spices carried in small sacks, fine pottery painted with intricate patterns, metalwork gleaming in the light. Customers move from stall to stall, fingering cloth, weighing coins, haggling in low voices. The rhythm of trade is steady, an outstretched hand, an exchange of goods, the clink of bronze or silver coins. For many, the basilica is a marketplace as much as a meeting hall, a place where wealth changes hands with every passing hour. Yet commerce is only part of what happens here. The basilica is also a place of justice. At one end of the hall, a raised platform might be set aside for magistrates or judges, their benches arranged beneath decorative panels or painted ceilings. Here, cases are heard, disputes settled, laws announced. The crowd gathers, leaning against columns or sitting on steps, their murmurs falling silent as voices rise in authority. Advocates step forward, their words carrying across the hall, gestures sharp, faces earnest. The accused stands nearby, shifting nervously, eyes darting across the crowd. Decisions are made not in private chambers, but in public halls, where all may hear. The basilica is thus not only a place of trade, but of order, where Rome's laws are given shape in daily life. Between commerce and justice lies conversation, the endless chatter of citizens that fills every corner. Men gather in clusters, their voices overlapping as they debate politics, discuss business, or share news. Some speak earnestly of the city's future, their brows furrowed, their hands slicing through the air to emphasize each point. Others laugh, their gestures broad, their words filled with gossip or humor. Clerks scribble notes on wax tablets, their styluses scratching softly. Messengers hurry through the crowd, carrying words from one man to another. Deals are struck with a handshake, arguments rise and fall, friendships are strengthened or broken in the space of a few words. The basilica hums with the sound of human connection, the quiet heartbeat of a city that never rests. Children, too, wander these halls. They follow their parents, tugging at sleeves, eyes wide at the bustle. Some play games with pebbles in quiet corners, their laughter mingling with the deeper voices around them. Vendors call out to them, offering small sweets or toys, coins exchanged quickly between grown hands. Even in the seriousness of trade and law, life is never absent, for the basilica is a space open to all. Pause for a moment and lean against one of the columns. Feel its cool surface, smooth where countless shoulders have brushed against it. Look down the long rows, where shafts of light fall in golden lines, dust motes drifting lazily. Close your eyes and listen. The basilica speaks in layers. The low murmur of voices, the sharp ring of a coin, the scrape of sandals on stone, the occasional shout rising above it all. It is a chorus of daily life, not grand or heroic, but steady, constant, and deeply human as the day wears on. The rhythm shifts. In the morning, trade is busiest, with stalls crowded and voices loud. By midday, the heat of the sun drives some outside, while others linger in the shade of the hall, resting on benches, sipping water from clay cups, wiping sweat from their brows. In the afternoon, legal matters take more space, magistrates settling disputes as the crowd thins. The echoing murmur grows quieter, though never still, for there is always someone here, always a voice to be heard, always a deal to be made. By evening, the basilica empties slowly. Merchants pack their goods into baskets and chests, voices fading as stalls are dismantled. The last coins clink as they are tucked away, the last disputes are settled with nods or reluctant agreements. Dust settles on the floors, and the air grows cooler as the sun dips low. The columns cast long shadows across the hall, and footsteps echo more clearly in the emptying space. The basilica exhales, its hum falling silent for the night, ready to breathe again with the dawn. Even in ruin, the basilici of the Forum carry this memory. Their walls may be broken, their roofs fallen, their floors covered in fragments, yet the shape of the halls remains. Stand among the surviving columns, and you can still imagine the scale. Walk across the cracked stone floors, and you can still hear the echoes of voices if you listen closely enough. The basilici remind us that Rome was not built on grandeur alone, but on the constant rhythm of daily life, of trade, of law, of conversation. To wander here today is to walk through silence filled with invisible chatter, The stones beneath your feet remember the countless sandals that scuffed against them. The air around the columns holds the faintest memory of voices once raised in laughter, in debate, in the simple business of living. Though centuries have passed, the basilica still hums softly with the memory of Rome's pulse. And as you leave, stepping once more into the open square of the Forum, you carry with you the sense that these halls were more than buildings. They were stages upon which the daily drama of Rome unfolded, places where power was exercised not only in grand decisions, but in small exchanges. Their silent grandeur remains not because of their ruins alone, but because of the lives that once filled them, the merchants, the magistrates, the children, the countless citizens who made the Forum the beating heart of Rome. The Roman Forum was not only the political and ceremonial heart of Rome, it was also one of its busiest markets. To walk into the Forum on a bustling day was to step into a living river of sound, movement, and color. The temples stood tall in silent grandeur. The basilica echoed with debates and transactions. But in between, filling every open space, the market stretched out like an endless tapestry of stalls, baskets, voices, and footsteps. From the first light of dawn, merchants began to arrive. Some came from within the city, leading carts piled high with produce gathered from gardens on the city's edge. Others traveled from farther away, their goods carried by donkeys or mules, the animals' hooves clopping against the paving stones. Foreign traders, too, appeared, their clothes marked by distant styles, their accents strange to Roman ears, their goods curious and exotic. By sunrise, the Forum had transformed from a quiet square of marble and stone into a humming hive of commerce, its air filled with the scent of fruit, bread, oil, and spices. The layout of the market was not uniform, but every merchant knew where he belonged. Bakers gathered near one another, their stalls piled with loaves still warm from morning ovens. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, drawing early customers who reached eagerly for round loaves or flat cakes. Grain sellers occupied their own corners, their baskets brimming with wheat, barley, and millet, measured out by the scoop into clay jars or sacks. Buyers ran their fingers through the grain, testing its weight, its dryness, its quality, before agreeing on a price. Fruit and vegetable sellers brought color to the market. Bright oranges and reds of pomegranates and apples, the green of cabbages and leeks, the pale hue of onions, the deep purple of figs, all arranged in baskets or laid out on wooden boards. Their stalls looked like small gardens transplanted into the heart of the city, and their voices rose above the crowd, calling out the freshness of their produce. Sweet figs, fresh grapes, the best you will find today. Their words rang out rhythmically, repeated again and again, until they became part of the very hum of the Forum. Olive oil sellers displayed their wares in clay amphorae, the tops sealed with wax, the sides stamped with marks of origin. Customers tasted a drop on the tip of a finger, rolling it between tongue and palate, nodding when the quality pleased them. Fishmongers, meanwhile, arrived from the river or nearby ports, their baskets heavy with the morning's catch. The smell of fish spread quickly, mingling with the sharper scent of herbs laid beside them: dill, parsley, coriander. Housewives leaned close, examining the eyes and scales, pressing coins into the fishmongers' hands, wrapping their purchases in leaves or cloth. But it was not only food that filled the Forum. Potters carried stacks of plates, bowls, and jars, their clay surfaces painted with simple patterns. Metalworkers brought knives, tools, and household items, their iron edges catching the morning light. Cloth sellers draped fabrics over wooden poles, their dyed colors, deep reds, blues, and yellows, rippling in the breeze. Some stalls sold sandals, baskets, or rope. Others offered perfumes in small glass jars, their scents drifting lightly through the heavier air of fish and bread. Each stall was a small world of its own, and together they formed a mosaic of life. The buyers came in steady streams. Housewives with baskets on their arms, their children tugging at their sides. Slaves sent on errands, clutching lists written on wax tablets, haggling carefully with the coins given to them. Wealthier citizens strolling slowly, their tunics clean and bright, servants carrying their purchases behind them. Travelers drawn to the forum not only for trade, but for the spectacle itself, their eyes wide at the abundance. The crowd thickened as the morning grew, until the air itself seemed to vibrate with the hum of voices, the shuffle of sandals, the clink of coins. Haggling was part of the rhythm. Prices were never fixed. They danced between buyer and seller with every exchange. A merchant called out one number. The customer shook his head and named another. Voices rose and fell, hands gestured, faces tightened or relaxed. Sometimes the seller won, sometimes the buyer. Often both walked away satisfied. The exchange was more than business. It was performance, ritual, a daily drama played out in countless acts across the forum. The sounds of the market blended into a constant chorus. Sellers shouting their wares, buyers arguing over prices, children laughing, animals braying, carts creaking, coins ringing against stone. Over it all lay the low hum of countless conversations, merging into a sound like the sea, always moving, always changing, yet steady in its rhythm. If you closed your eyes, you could feel the forum not as a square of stone, but as a living, breathing organism, pulsing with the energy of its people. The smells were just as vivid. Bread fresh from the oven, its crusts crackling, herbs crushed beneath hands, releasing sharp and fragrant oils. Fish laid on boards, their briny scent strong. Fruit split open, its sweetness drifting through the air. Olive oil warm from the sun, earthy and rich. All these scents mingled into one, filling the forum with an aroma that was not always pleasant, but always alive. Step closer to a stall, and you might see the details more clearly. A baker cutting loaves with a quick, practiced hand, dust rising from the crust as he slices. A woman weighing grain in her palm, her lips pursed as she considers the price. A child biting into a fig, juice running down his chin as his mother scolds him softly. A potter turning a bowl in his hands, showing the glaze to a customer. These small details, repeated 1,000 times, gave the market its heartbeat. The bacilli nearby added to the life of the market. Their shaded spaces drew merchants who needed shelter, and their echoing halls amplified the chatter of buyers and sellers. People moved easily between the bacilli and the open square, carrying goods, exchanging news, blurring the line between business and trade. The forum was not divided into separate functions. It was one continuous flow of voices, footsteps, and exchanges, spilling from temples to bacilli to open stalls. Foreign traders added an extra note to the chorus. Their accents marked them as outsiders, their goods as curiosities. Spices from the east, glass from Egypt, wool from the north. All of these made their way into the forum. Roman citizens leaned close, their eyes wide, fingering fabrics or inhaling scents they had never known. Prices were higher for these goods, but so too was the fascination. The forum was not only a marketplace of Rome, but of the world Rome ruled. Its stones bearing the weight of goods and voices from far beyond the city's walls that as the day wore on. The sun rose higher, heat pressed down, and the crowd shifted. Some stalls emptied, their goods sold, their sellers packing baskets to leave. Others grew busier, buyers rushing to secure what remained. Shadows shortened, and the air grew thick with dust and noise. Yet still the hum continued, unbroken, steady as breath. The forum did not pause. It moved with the rhythm of life, constant, endless, as natural as the rising and setting of the sun late afternoon. The market began to thin. Merchants packed their goods, folding cloth, stacking pottery, tying bundles of herbs. The last coins clinked into hands. The last loaves were sold. The last fish wrapped. Voices grew quieter, footsteps lighter. The air cleared slowly, the square opening once more, the noise fading into silence. By evening, the forum was again a place of stone and shadow, its market gone, its hum replaced by the soft whisper of wind between columns. Yet the memory lingered. The stones beneath your feet still held the echo of footsteps. The air still seemed to carry a faint trace of bread and spice. Even in silence, the forum remembered the hum of exchange, the voices of sellers and buyers, the rhythm of life that had filled it for centuries. As you walk deeper into the forum, past the basilici with their constant hum of trade and the stalls where merchants call out prices, your eyes are drawn toward a raised platform of stone and marble. It is not as tall as the temples, nor as vast as the basilici, but it holds a presence that is undeniable. This is the rostrum, the speaker's platform, the place where voices once rose to fill the square, where words carried the weight of power, and where the crowd gathered to listen, to shout, to respond. The rostrum is simple in form but powerful in meaning. A wide platform, reached by steps at the side, its front decorated once with the bronze prows of captured enemy ships, trophies that gave the structure its name. These bronze rams gleamed in the sunlight, reminders of Rome's victories, of its strength at sea and on land. Even now, though the bronze is long gone, the stones still carry the memory of their shine, the echo of their presence. To stand before the rostrum is to feel the weight of history, not in silence, but in sound. Imagine approaching it on a morning when the forum is already alive with voices. The market hums behind you, merchants calling, buyers haggling. Children laugh in the shadows of columns. But ahead, a crowd gathers, their voices low, their eyes fixed on the platform. The murmur grows as more arrive, sandals slapping against stone, bodies pressing close together. Some climb onto steps or lean against columns to see better. Others shield their eyes against the sun, waiting for the figure who will soon appear above them. Then, a man steps forward onto the rostrum. His robe flows around him. His hand lifts to command silence. Slowly, the murmur fades. The crowd shifts, bodies leaning forward, ears straining to catch the first words. And when he speaks, his voice carries, not only by strength of lungs, but by the echo of stone and the stillness of attention. Each word rises into the air, bouncing against the columns and walls of the forum, reaching even those at the edges of the square. The rostrum is not merely a platform. It is an amplifier, a stage, a place where the human voice becomes the center of the world. The topics vary, for the rostrum has heard everything. Speeches of celebration, announcing victories and triumphs. Speeches of warning, urging citizens to vigilance. Speeches of grief, mourning the passing of leaders or soldiers. Speeches of persuasion, seeking votes, support, approval. And speeches of anger, voices rising sharply, echoing across the square, stirring the crowd into shouts of agreement or defiance. The forum itself seemed to breathe with these words, its stones absorbing them, its air vibrating with their power. Stand at the base of the rostrum and look upward. Imagine the faces of those who once stood here, stern, determined, their hands slicing the air to emphasize points. They speak not only with words, but with bodies, a step forward to command attention, a pause to let silence sink in, a raised arm to call for unity. The crowd responds in kind, with nods, with murmurs, with bursts of applause or cries of dissent. The rostrum is not a place of one voice alone, but of many, woven together in the shared act of listening and responding. Climb the steps in your mind and place yourself upon the platform. From here, the forum spreads wide before you. The temples rise on the edges, their columns gleaming. The basilici stretch long, their shadows deep. The market fills the square, its stalls bright with goods, its air thick with scents. And in the center, the crowd presses close, their faces lifted toward you, their eyes fixed, their ears waiting. It is a view unlike any other, not of buildings or monuments, but of people, of the city itself gathered into one place, one moment. Listening, the orators who spoke here were not only men of words, but men of performance. They understood the power of rhythm, of pause, of gesture. A speech was not simply spoken. It was delivered, crafted, shaped like a piece of art. Voices rose in crescendos, then dropped into whispers that drew the crowd closer. Arguments unfolded step by step, leading listeners from agreement to conviction. Emotion was stirred with stories, with images, with appeals to pride, to fear, to hope. Each speech was a performance, and the rostrum its stage, but not all moments were grand. Sometimes the rostrum was a place of simple announcements, a new law proclaimed, a decision explained, a public notice given. The words may not have carried passion, but they still carried weight, for to stand here was to speak with authority, with the voice of the city itself. Even the most ordinary announcement gained dignity from the platform. The crowd gathering because they knew that words spoken here mattered. The crowd itself was a character in these moments. Men and women pressed together, slaves standing beside citizens, children on their parents' shoulders. Faces reflected every emotion: joy, anger, sorrow, confusion. Hands waved in agreement, fists shook in defiance, arms crossed in skepticism. The air was alive not only with the voice from the rostrum, but with the murmurs and shouts that answered it. The forum was not silent listening. It was a dialogue, a living exchange between speaker and listeners, each shaping the other. Sometimes the rostrum was a place of tension. Voices rose not to inspire, but to divide, to rally one side against another. Crowds shouted back, the air thick with argument, with anger. Sandals stamped against stone, hands waved in protest. The rostrum became not only a stage, but a battlefield of words, where victory or defeat was measured not in swords but in shouts, not in blood but in persuasion. And yet, in quieter moments, the rostrum also held peace. A leader's voice thanking the people for their patience. A simple story shared to remind citizens of their shared identity. A call for unity after division, for calm after unrest. These words, too, carried power, soothing the crowd, reminding them of their place as one city, one people. The rostrum could stir chaos, but it could also bring stillness, its voice a balm against the noise of life day as the day ended, and the sun sank low. The rostrum stood empty once more. The crowd dispersed, sandals scuffing softly against stone as people returned to their homes. The platform remained, its steps quiet, its surface bare, its presence unchanged. But the air still seemed to hold the echoes of voices, as though the words lingered, refusing to fade. Even in silence, the rostrum spoke, a reminder that this was the place where Rome listened, where Rome decided, where Rome remembered. Today, in ruins, the rostrum still holds its power. The bronze rams are gone, the platform worn, the stones chipped and broken. Yet stand before it, and you can still imagine the voices. Stand upon it, and you can still feel the weight of eyes upon you, the hum of the crowd, the energy of the forum gathered below. The rostrum is no longer filled with speeches, but it is still filled with memory, with the silent grandeur of words that once shaped a world. To walk past, it is to walk past more than stone. It is to walk past the stage upon which the city itself once performed, where words were weapons, shields, and bridges. It is to remember that power lies not only in armies or monuments, but in the human voice, lifted in passion, carried across a square, heard by a crowd, remembered by history. And so, as you move onward, leaving the rostrum behind, its presence lingers. You hear the faint echo of voices in the air, the rhythm of words that rose and fell long ago. The rostrum whispers still, reminding you that here, in the heart of Rome, words mattered. And in their echoes, they still do. When you wander through the Roman Forum, it is not only the paving stones or the towering temples that capture your attention. Scattered among them, standing in proud silence, are the monuments of memory, the triumphal arches and statues that once spoke loudly of Rome's victories, of its heroes, of its power. Though many are broken now, their outlines softened by time, they still hold an undeniable presence. To walk among them is to walk among the city's memories, to pass through stone and bronze that once proclaimed, Rome has conquered, Rome endures. The triumphal arch is one of Rome's most distinctive forms of commemoration. Tall, broad, and richly decorated, each arch was both a gateway and a statement. Built of stone and marble, framed by columns and crowned with sculpted reliefs, they stood at the edges of the forum or across its pathways, their wide openings allowing processions to pass through. To walk beneath an arch was not merely to cross space. It was to cross history, to step into the memory of triumphs celebrated with pomp and pride. Imagine one such arch in its prime. The morning sun strikes its surface, turning white marble to gold. Carvings leap into clarity, soldiers marching in perfect lines, captives with bowed heads, treasures carried on wagons, gods and symbols watching from above. Every surface tells a story, each detail carved with precision, meant to remind every passerby of Rome's victories. Citizens approaching the forum stop to gaze upward, tracing the figures with their eyes, murmuring to one another about battles won, lands conquered, power secured. Children crane their necks, pointing at the images, learning the names of generals and emperors through the language of stone. During a triumphal procession, the arches came alive. Soldiers marched beneath them in glittering armor, their shields catching the sun, their boots striking the paving stones in steady rhythm. Captives followed, their chains rattling softly, their faces etched with sorrow. Wagons groaned under the weight of treasures, gold, silver, exotic animals, objects from distant lands. The general, crowned with laurel, rode proudly in his chariot, his gaze fixed ahead, the cheers of the crowd echoing around him. As the procession passed beneath the arch, the monument framed the moment, transforming the march into history, the fleeting event into lasting memory. The statues, too, spoke with silent voices. Some stood upon pedestals, bronze or marble figures raised high above the crowd. They depicted generals, senators, emperors, men whose names once filled the forum with power. Others stood at ground level, lifelike and immediate, their faces stern, their robes carved with flowing detail. Horses reared in stone, riders sat tall, their expressions frozen in confidence. Each statue was both art and statement. This man mattered. This life shaped Rome. This memory endures. Walk slowly among them, and you begin to notice the details. The folds of a cloak, carved so carefully that the stone seems soft. The curl of hair, the furrow of a brow, the strength of a hand resting on a sword or scroll. Bronze figures gleam in the sun, their surfaces polished by time and touch. Marble figures stand pale against the sky, their edges softened but their presence still commanding. Each detail was chosen, each feature meant to inspire, to remind, to teach. But the arches and statues were not only for the great. They were for the people. Every passerby saw them, walked beneath them, lived among them. They were not hidden in palaces or villas, but placed in the forum, in the heart of the city, where every citizen could see Rome's strength made visible. They reminded the people of victories won on distant fields, of leaders who stood tall, of the empire that stretched beyond the horizon. In their silence, they spoke to all, weaving memory into daily life. Pause for a moment at the base of an arch. Look upward. Imagine the sun pouring through its opening, casting long shadows across the paving stones. Feel the coolness of its shade, the weight of its stone pressing down not in burden, but in presence. The carvings above you seem to move as the light shifts, details emerging and fading with each passing hour. Stand there long enough, and you can almost hear the echoes of cheers, the rumble of wheels, the ring of armor passing through. The arch does not move, but it holds movement within it, a frozen frame of triumph. Step closer to a statue and study its face. The eyes are blank, for ancient statues did not always carve pupils, yet they seem to look past you, into the distance. The lips are firm, the jaw strong, the posture upright. Even in ruin, the figure radiates strength. Place your hand against the pedestal, feel the roughness of stone. Imagine the countless others who have stood here, gazing upward, feeling the same mixture of awe and familiarity. For the statues were part of the forum's life, as ordinary as they were extraordinary. Children played in their shadows, merchants set stalls beside them, orators gestured toward them in speeches. They were not remote. They were companions of daily life. Time, of course, has changed them. Many statues are gone, melted down or toppled. Many arches stand broken, their carvings weathered, their crowns fallen. Yet in their fragments, they still hold power. A single column of an arch still rises proudly, its surface marked by wind and rain. A headless statue still carries the weight of presence, its robes flowing, its posture unshaken. In ruins, they remind us not only of Rome's grandeur, but of its passage, its endurance, its ability to speak across centuries even in silence. Close your eyes and imagine the forum filled with these monuments in their prime. Dozens of statues lining the square, each with gleaming bronze or polished marble. Arches at the entrances, their carvings crisp, their surfaces bright. The crowd moving among them, pointing, talking, remembering. The air filled with voices not only of sellers and buyers, but of memory itself, spoken in stone. Then open your eyes to the present, where only a few remain, scattered, broken, yet still powerful. And in that contrast, you feel the depth of history, the rise, the glory, the fall, the endurance. The triumphs remembered in these arches and statues were not only military. They were also triumphs of endurance, of identity, of the city's ability to hold itself together through centuries. Each monument, no matter how specific its story, became part of a larger chorus. Rome is strong. Rome remembers. Rome continues. And in their silence today, they still whisper those words, not in arrogance, but in endurance, in the quiet dignity of stone that refuses to vanish. To walk among them is to walk among voices. Not loud, not boastful, but steady, patient, enduring. The arches frame your steps. The statues watch as you pass. The stones beneath hold your weight, as they once held the weight of triumphal processions. Together, they weave a story of power not shouted but remembered, not fleeting but lasting. And as you leave this part of the forum, stepping once more into the open square, you carry with you the sense that Rome's memory was not written only in words or scrolls, but in stone and bronze, in arches and statues that stood in silence yet spoke forever. When you imagine the Roman Forum, it is easy to think of temples gleaming in the sunlight, of triumphal arches towering proudly, of basilicae humming with debate and trade. But the Forum was never only stone and marble. Its true life came from the people who filled it, the thousands of ordinary footsteps that echoed daily across its paving. To walk here in ancient times was not only to see monuments, but to be surrounded by the pulse of humanity, children running, workers laboring, travelers arriving, all of them weaving their lives into the fabric of the city. The day begins early. Before the sun has fully risen, workers are already moving into the forum. You hear the scrape of wooden carts on stone as they are pulled into position, the bray of donkeys heavy with loads, the voices of men calling out to one another as they set down baskets and tools. The air is still cool, but the city is awake. Fires smolder in distant ovens, sending faint curls of smoke into the sky. Vendors unpack their goods with practiced hands, arranging fruits in neat piles, setting loaves of bread onto boards, polishing bronze vessels until they catch the morning light. Children appear soon after. Some follow their mothers, clutching hems of tunics, eyes wide as they take in the bustle. Others run ahead, weaving through the legs of adults, laughter ringing out like birdsong. They chase one another across the stones, their sandals slapping softly, their voices echoing between columns. For them, the Forum is not only a marketplace or a civic center. It is a playground, a place of wonder. They stare at statues towering above them, point at carved figures on arches, mimic the gestures of orators who climb the rostra. In their play, they are both audience and participant in the life of the city. The workers carry the weight of the Forum on their shoulders. Bakers arrive with baskets of bread, still warm, their crusts golden and fragrant. Potters lay out rows of clay bowls and jars, each one slightly different, their surfaces smooth from careful hands. Metal workers display knives, tools, lamps, their iron gleaming faintly. Farmers bring produce from fields beyond the city, cabbages, onions, leeks, grapes. They unload heavy sacks, wipe sweat from brows, arrange goods with a mixture of pride and urgency. The Forum depends on them, for without their labor, the square would be empty, silent. Their hands shape the daily rhythm. Though their names are rarely remembered, travelers enter from the city's gates, their sandals dusty from the road, their clothes carrying the marks of distant lands. They pause at the edge of the Forum, taking in the vastness, the temples, the statues, the crowds. Some carry goods to trade, fabrics from the east, glass from Egypt, wool from the north. Others come with messages, news, stories from provinces far away. Their voices carry accents unfamiliar to Roman ears. Their gestures mark them as outsiders. Yet here in the Forum, they blend into the flow of people. Becoming part of the great current of the city, the Forum is not quiet for long. By mid-morning, the square is alive with sound. Merchants call out their wares: fresh figs, sweet grapes, the best bread in the city. Buyers respond with questions, their voices rising in argument over prices. Children laugh, dogs bark, donkeys bray. The clang of a hammer rings from a smith's corner, the scrape of a knife cutting bread, the creak of a cart while turning slowly. Voices blend into a chorus, not chaotic but steady, like the hum of bees in a hive. This is the heartbeat of Rome, not in speeches or decrees, but in the daily rhythm of ordinary people. Pause for a moment and watch the movement. A woman bends to examine grain, her hands sifting through golden kernels before nodding in approval. A boy holds out a coin, small and worn, in exchange for a handful of nuts. A traveler unfurls a cloth dyed in brilliant purple, showing it to curious onlookers who reach to touch its smooth surface. A scribe sits on a low bench, stylus scratching across a wax tablet as he records accounts for a merchant. A laborer rests in the shade, drinking water from a clay cup, wiping dust from his face. Every detail is small, but together they weave the texture of daily life. The Forum is also a place of chance encounters. Friends meet unexpectedly in the crowd, clasping hands, exchanging news. Strangers strike bargains, their eyes sharp, their voices steady. Rumors spread quickly, whispered from one ear to another, growing louder with each retelling. A new law announced, a victory celebrated, a scandal whispered. The Forum carries it all. For many, it is not only a place to buy and sell, but to hear the latest, to stay connected, to feel part of the living body of Rome. Children, again, bring their own energy. They play games with pebbles, drawing lines on the dusty stones, laughing when one wins. They climb steps, daring each other to reach higher, until a parent calls them down sharply. They chase one another in circles, their voices mingling with the deeper hum of adults. Some help with work, carrying small baskets, fetching water, holding goods, their hands eager, their faces serious. For them, the Forum is both a school and a stage, teaching them the rhythm of life, preparing them for the roles they will one day play. Workers pass constantly, their labor invisible yet essential. Men repair broken stalls, hammering nails into wood, tightening ropes. Sweepers clear dust and debris, their brooms scratching softly against stone. Water carriers move steadily, clay jars balanced carefully, the cool liquid sloshing with each step. The smell of sweat mingles with the scent of bread and herbs, the sound of labor blending into the wider hum. Without them, the Forum would falter. With them, it thrives, alive each day from dawn to dusk. Travelers, too, shape the atmosphere. Some arrive weary, their bodies slumped, their eyes scanning the crowd with caution. Others arrive proud, their heads high, their goods exotic, their stories vivid. They speak of lands beyond the sea, of deserts and mountains, of strange customs and distant wars. The Romans listen, curious, skeptical, amused. Deals are struck, goods exchanged, but beyond commerce there is fascination. A sense that the Forum is not only the heart of Rome, but the crossroads of the world. As midday arrives, the heat presses down. Shadows shrink beneath columns, the air grows heavy. People move more slowly, seeking shade beneath porticos or inside basilici. Vendors fan themselves with cloth, wiping sweat from brows. Children grow restless, their laughter fading into tired whines. Workers pause, sitting on steps, chewing bread, sipping water. The Forum does not fall silent, but its hum softens, like a hive at rest in the heat of the day. Then, as afternoon cools, the rhythm quickens again. More buyers arrive, more deals are struck, more voices rise. The crowd thickens once more, the square buzzing with energy. Orators climb the rostra, their voices carrying over the murmur, drawing listeners who pause in their errands. A burst of applause rises, followed by murmurs of dissent. The Forum is not only a market, but a stage, where words, goods, and lives all intermingle in constant exchange. By evening, the day begins to fade. Merchants pack their goods, folding cloth, stacking pottery, tying baskets. Workers sweep again, clearing dust and scraps. Children, tired now, cling to parents' hands, their earlier laughter replaced with yawns. Travelers find places to rest, some leaving the Forum, others staying in inns nearby. The air cools, shadows lengthen, voices grow quieter. The Forum exhales, its hum softening into silence. Yet even in the quiet, the memory lingers. The stones beneath your feet still carry the warmth of the day, the echo of footsteps, the faint whisper of voices. The statues seem to watch, silent witnesses to the ebb and flow of life. The arches still frame the space, holding the memory of processions and crowds. The Forum does not sleep. It remembers, its silence filled with the hum of all the days that came before it. See the Forum as it truly was. You must see its people. Not only the senators and generals whose names are carved in history, but the children who played, the workers who labored, the travelers who arrived and departed. They were the lifeblood of the square, the reason the stones are worn smooth, the reason the space was alive. Their voices may be gone, but their presence remains, woven into the very fabric of the place. And so, as you walk through the Forum today, imagine them beside you. A child laughing as she runs past, a worker wiping sweat from his brow, a traveler pausing to tell a story of distant lands. Their footsteps join yours, their voices blend into the silence. Their lives remind you that history is not only monuments and ruins, but people, ordinary, countless, enduring. As the long day in the Forum begins to bend toward evening, the air shifts in ways both subtle and profound. The brightness of noon fades, and with it, the bustling energy of the square softens. The voices of merchants, once sharp and insistent, grow lower. The laughter of children, so lively in the morning, becomes subdued as weariness sets in. The clatter of carts, the bray of donkeys, the hum of countless footsteps, all of it begins to slow, to settle, to dissolve into the calm rhythm of nightfall. The first sign of evening comes in the lengthening of shadows. Columns that stood tall and proud all day now cast long, dark lines across the paving stones. Statues loom larger in silhouette, their faces swallowed in dusk while their outlines sharpen against the fading sky. The triumphal arches, once bright with sunlight, now become doorways into shadow, their carvings blurred as light slips away. The Forum itself seems to change shape, stretching, softening, transforming from a square of bustling activity into a landscape of quiet forms, of stone and shadow. Vendors begin to pack their stalls. The baker stacks empty baskets, brushing crumbs from the boards where his loaves once lay. The potter wraps leftover bowls and jars in cloth, tying them carefully with rope before loading them into a cart. The fruit seller gathers bruised figs and grapes, muttering softly, while his children chase after rolling apples that escape across the stones. The fishmonger washes his stall with a bucket of water, the scent of the days catch mingling with the dampness of stone. Each movement is slower now, less hurried, the urgency of the day replaced by the weariness of evening. The workers move with the practiced rhythm of routine. Stalls are dismantled, carts creak as goods are loaded, ropes strain as bundles are tied down. Voices call out, softer now, as neighbors exchange farewells or promises to meet again in the morning. A woman waves to another across the square. A man claps his friend on the shoulder. Children tug at sleeves, eager to go home. The air fills with the sound of departure, not the loud clamor of trade, but the softer murmur of conclusion as the sun dips lower. The color of the Forum changes. Stones that gleamed pale in daylight now glow with warm tones of amber and rose. The marble of temples reflects the fading light, their columns glowing briefly as if lit from within before sinking into shadow. Dust rises gently from the ground as feet shuffle toward the exits, catching the last rays of sunlight and turning them into golden haze. Above, the sky shifts from blue to violet, the first stars appearing faintly, their presence quiet but steady. Fires begin to appear. Small braziers are lit near stalls that linger, their flames flickering orange against the deepening dusk. Lamps are hung in basilicae, their light glowing through high windows, casting faint patterns against stone walls. Torches flicker along pathways, their smoke curling into the night air. The Forum takes on a softer glow, no longer bright with sun but illuminated with fire, its light moving, dancing, alive. The square becomes both quieter and more intimate, its vastness softened by the warmth of flame. People linger in groups, even after trade is done. Friends gather on steps, their voices low as they share stories of the day. A father tells his children a tale of Rome's past, his words rising and falling as they listen with wide eyes. Two merchants, their business concluded, share a cup of wine, their laughter breaking the quiet in bursts before fading again. Strangers exchange words of news, of rumors, of distant lands. The Forum, though emptying, remains alive, its hum transformed from noise to murmur, from clamor to conversation. Travelers find places to rest. Some set up small fires on the edges of the square, cooking simple meals, their smoke rising into the night. Others spread blankets against walls, their bodies weary from long journeys. A donkey brays softly, pawing at the ground, while its owner strokes its neck, whispering calm words. The Forum becomes a resting place as much as a marketplace, a shelter for those between destinations, a pause between days. Children grow drowsy. No longer chasing one another across the stones, they now lean against their mothers, their eyelids heavy, their voices soft. A boy yawns widely, rubbing his eyes with small fists. A girl curls into her father's lap, her breathing slowing as he strokes her hair. Their laughter has faded, replaced by the gentle rhythm of sleep. Parents lift them, carrying them homeward, their small sandals dangling loosely, their heads resting on shoulders. The sounds of labor fade too. The hammer of the smith falls silent, his tools packed away. The sweepers finish their work, gathering the last scraps, their brooms resting against walls. The water carriers depart, their jars empty, their steps heavy. The day's work is done, its energy spent, its rhythm closed. The Forum exhales, its breath soft, its body resting as full darkness falls. The Forum transforms again. The fires glow brighter now, their light flickering against columns and arches. Shadows dance across statues, making them seem alive, their forms moving in the wavering light. The paving stones gleam faintly, reflecting fire and moonlight, their worn surfaces glistening with a quiet sheen. The air grows cooler, carrying the scent of smoke, of damp stone, of distant flowers opening in the night. The voices of the city fade into the background, replaced by the soft whisper of wind through colonnades. Silence deepens, though it is not emptiness. It is filled with memory, of footsteps, of voices, of lives lived. The Forum holds these memories like the stones hold heat, slowly releasing them into the night. Stand still, and you can almost hear them, the laughter of children, the calls of merchants, the rhythm of sandals, all fading into the distance but still present in the air. The statues and arches loom larger in the firelight, their details lost but their forms sharp. They watch in silence, guardians of the square, their presence steady, their patience endless. The temples stand dark, their columns black against the sky, their steps empty, their grandeur softened. The basilicii, too, are quiet, their vast halls empty, their echoes stilled. The Forum becomes a place of shapes and shadows, of silence and memory, of rest after the long hum of the day. For those who remain, the Forum at night is a place of calm. A merchant sits beside his cart, staring into the flames of a small fire, his thoughts drifting. A traveler lies on a blanket, gazing up at the stars, his body weary but his mind alive with wonder. A guard walks slowly along the edges, his footsteps steady, his eyes watchful, his presence quiet but reassuring. Life continues, but at a slower rhythm, a softer pulse. At last, the fires burn low. The last voices fade. The last footsteps echo into silence. The Forum lies in shadow, its stones cool, its monuments still. The night belongs not to noise but to quiet, not to crowds but to solitude. Yet even in this stillness, the Forum remains alive, for its silence is filled with the hum of memory, with the whispers of all who passed before, with the promise of all who will return at dawn. The Forum at evening is not the Forum of triumphs or decrees, not the Forum of bustling trade or fiery speeches. It is the Forum of humanity, of people leaving, of shadows lengthening, of fires glowing softly in the dark. It is the Forum that rests, that breathes, that endures. And in its quiet, you find the deepest truth of all, that history is not only in the moments of noise and glory, but in the silence that follows, in the simple act of departure, in the quiet memory of lives lived and gone. When you step into the Roman Forum today, it is not the living, breathing city of 2,000 years ago that greets you, but a quieter world, a landscape of ruins, fragments, and memory. The Forum has become a place where time itself seems layered, where silence rests upon stones that once pulsed with life, and where every column, every broken arch, every worn step whispers of what was. To walk here now is not only to see history, it is to feel it underfoot, to breathe it in the air, to let it unfold slowly in your mind like a story told in whispers. The first impression is one of openness. The Forum, once crowded with buildings, stalls, and people, now spreads wide beneath the sky. Where once basilicity enclosed vast halls of chatter, now only lines of columns remain, their broken tops reaching upward like fingers pointing to the past. Where temples once gleamed in marble and paint, now stand bare foundations, steps leading to empty spaces, columns weathered by centuries of sun and rain. The rostrum, stripped of its bronze trophies, stands in quiet dignity, its platform empty, its voice gone. The arches still rise, some proud, some broken, their carvings softened, their power diminished but not erased. The Forum is both less and more than it was, less in its material grandeur, but more in its ability to evoke memory, to invite reflection, to remind us that history endures even in fragments. Walk slowly along the paths, and you notice how uneven the stones are. The paving, once smooth from countless feet, is now cracked, shifted, covered in grass in places. Your steps echo differently, hollow in some spots, solid in others, as though the ground itself has changed its tone. Birds hop across the stones, their cries sharp against the silence. The hum of the ancient crowd is gone, replaced by the faint murmur of the modern city beyond, distant and detached. Yet if you close your eyes, you can almost hear the echoes return, the laughter of children, the shouts of merchants, the cadence of an orator's speech. The Forum remembers, even if faintly. Columns rise everywhere, some whole, some broken, their marble surfaces streaked with age. Moss grows in cracks, lichen spreads in pale patches. The fluting, once sharp and precise, is now softened, blurred, like wrinkles on an old face. Yet they still stand, proud, defiant, reaching toward the sky as they always did. Place your hand against one, and you feel its coolness, its solidity. Imagine the countless hands that touched it before, workers setting it in place, citizens brushing against it as they passed, children running their fingers along its grooves. The column is both present and absent, both itself and a memory of what it once supported. The temples are ruins now, their chambers empty, their decorations gone. Yet the steps remain, wide and worn, inviting you upward. Climb them, and you stand where countless others once stood, looking out over the square. The view is different now. No bustling crowd, no market stalls, no triumphal processions. But the feeling is the same. To stand above the Forum is to feel its weight, its significance, its place at the heart of a world that once seemed eternal. The silence makes it easier to imagine, to let the past return in your mind, to see what is no longer there. The arches, too, endure in fragments. Some rise whole, their carved reliefs still visible, soldiers marching, captives bowing, treasures displayed. The details are faded, but the stories remain, etched into stone that has survived centuries. Other arches are broken, their tops collapsed, their sides leaning, their carvings lost. Yet, even in ruin, they frame the sky, their shapes reminding you of victory, of pride, of the endless desire to remember. Walk beneath one, and you feel the same sensation that countless others did, of passing through history, of being framed by triumph. The stones whisper not of glory now, but of endurance, of survival, of the way memory clings even when time strips away its surface. Statues are gone, most melted, broken, or lost. Only fragments remain, a headless torso, a foot carved in marble, a pedestal that once bore a figure. Yet these fragments speak too. A broken hand still shows strength in its curve. A cracked robe still flows with grace. A pedestal still bears inscriptions, faint but legible. naming men whose lives shaped the Forum. The absence itself becomes presence, reminding you that all things fade, but traces endure, enough to tell stories, enough to whisper across centuries. Modern visitors walk among these ruins. Their footsteps are soft, their voices hushed, as though the space demands respect. Some pause to read signs. Others gaze upward in silence. Still others sit quietly, letting the place wash over them. Cameras click, pens scribble in notebooks, eyes wander across the landscape. The Forum has become not a place of daily life, but a place of reflection, a museum without walls, a stage where the past and present meet in silence. Yet in this silence, life persists. Grass grows between stones, flowers bloom in corners, birds nest in broken walls. The Forum breathes differently now, its hum replaced by the rhythms of nature. The wind moves through arches, the rain washes over columns, the sun warms marble surfaces, the moon casts shadows across empty steps. Time continues, but the Forum remains, adapting, enduring, whispering that to walk here today is to walk not only through ruins, but through memory. Every stone holds a story, every broken column a voice. The Forum does not shout anymore. It whispers. It asks you to listen closely, to slow your steps, to let imagination fill the spaces where walls once stood, where voices once rang. It invites you to see not only what is gone, but what remains. Endurance, presence, the quiet dignity of stone that refuses to vanish at night. The Forum is even more powerful. Lamps glow softly along paths, casting light against broken columns, making them seem taller, more solemn. Shadows stretch across paving stones, long and dark, reminding you of countless evenings long past. The air is cool, the silence deeper, the whispers stronger. You stand among ruins, but you do not feel alone. The stones themselves seem alive, companions in the night, holding the memory of all who came before. And in this moment, you understand the truth. The Forum endures not only in what it shows, but in what it makes you feel. It endures in the quiet awe of those who walk here today, in the way it stirs imagination, in the way it whispers across centuries. The grandeur is gone, the noise is gone, the life is gone, and yet it remains steady, patient, eternal. The Roman Forum as it stands today is not a ruin in despair. It is a ruin in dignity, a reminder that all things pass, but memory remains. Its stones whisper still, carrying voices of children, of workers, of travelers, of orators, of merchants, of emperors. They whisper not loudly, but gently, asking only that you pause, listen, and remember. And so, as you take your final steps across its uneven paving, leaving the Forum behind, you carry with you not only the image of broken columns and arches, but the sound of whispers, the sound of history speaking softly, steadily, reminding you that the past is never truly gone. It endures, always, in the stones that still whisper. And so, our slow walk through the Roman Forum comes to an end. We began in the quiet of dawn, when the first light touched the stones and shadows stretched long across the square. We listened to the echo of countless footsteps pressed into the paving, felt the presence of the temples rising in silent grandeur, and stepped into the basilica where voices once carried in endless waves of trade, law, and conversation. That we paused at the rostra, where words became power, where the human voice could move a crowd as surely as an army moved across distant fields. We passed beneath arches carved with triumphs, gazed upward at statues that once gleamed with bronze and marble, and lingered among fragments that still held strength even in their brokenness. We watched as the market filled the Forum with its hum, sellers calling out, buyers haggling, children laughing, and we walked slowly into the evening. When the fires glowed, the shadows lengthened, and the city exhaled in quiet departure at last. We stood among the ruins as they remain today, listening not to shouts or speeches, but to whispers, the whispers of stones that have endured centuries, carrying the memory of all who came before. The Forum is no longer alive with the bustle of daily life, but it still breathes. It breathes in silence, in the way broken columns reach upward against the sky, in the way arches frame the horizon, in the way paving stones hold the imprint of footsteps long vanished. To walk here is to be reminded that history is not gone. It is present in the air, in the stones, in the very silence that surrounds you. Perhaps that is the gift of the Forum today. It does not overwhelm with noise or spectacle. Instead, it invites you to slow down, to listen, to let the quiet strength of endurance speak. It reminds you that the grandeur of Rome was built not only in triumphs and monuments, but in the daily lives of countless people. Children running across the square, workers carrying baskets, travelers pausing to gaze in wonder. Their voices may be gone, but their presence remains, woven into the fabric of this place. And as you drift toward rest tonight, let the Forum's calm linger with you. Imagine the glow of torches against marble, the hush of footsteps fading into night, the steady patience of stone beneath a sky filled with stars. Let the silence carry you, steady and gentle, like the whisper of history itself. Thank you for walking this path through time. And if you found peace in this journey, remember to like and subscribe, so more of these quiet stories can find you again. Until next time, sleep well, and let the whispers of the past guide you into dreams.